good morning, everyone. My name is Moy Mendez. Could you all help me give a warm welcome to my friend Vale Barrera, who's here with us today? So what you all may not know is that Vale is one of the guys that helped me he helped me launch the Hope Garage. And Volkswagen relocated him to the Houston area to cover this whole region from here to Louisiana. And when I got here, I invited him out for lunch. We got together and he said, "Hey, so what are you doing out here?" And I told him about the award. I asked him, "Hey, would you join me tomorrow? Because this award belongs to you as much as it does to me." So Vale, thank you so much for your friendship and for coming out and hanging out today. Well, my name is Moy Mendez, but what you all may not know is that my full name is Moises Mendez. Now, a lot of people, it's really hard to pronounce, so I just go by Moy. That's actually the shorter variation, just like you would call John, Jonathan John. For everybody in Spanish whose name is Moises, you call him Moy. So everybody just calls me Moy. But the reason why I love my name Moises is because I've resonated so much with the story of Moses. My mom told me about my name and told me about the story of Moses. It inspired me. It encouraged me. I'm not sure how much attention we've paid to Jochebed, Moses' mom, but not only was she innovative, but she was courageous. I mean, this woman, how in the world do you think all of the Hebrew boys are dying? But she thinks of this innovative way to save her son's life. After 3 months, she couldn't hide him anymore. So she said, "Let me put this basket together." And it wasn't just an ordinary basket. This basket was layered with tar. I mean, it looked like this nice little jacuzzi floating down the Nile River. And not only was she innovative in saving his life, but she was very strategic. She said, "You know what, if I put it down this stream, the current is going to take it right to Pharaoh's daughter where she bathes." And maybe in hope that Pharaoh's daughter would look at Moses and say, "I have compassion. I have compassion over this Hebrew boy. He's part of a marginalized community." Drew him out of the water. And that's actually what Moses means, is to be drawn out of the water. So imagine the stories that inspired Moses growing up and why he actually took this challenge, this call to do God's work and to free Israel from slavery. I mean, here you have Moses, who was told probably this whole life growing up, "You were actually just thrown down this little basket. We wanted to save you. Moses, there's something about you." And not only that, he had the privilege to go into Pharaoh's household and be educated. That was the world's cultural epicenter. That was the most powerful country at the time. And here was Moses, given a level of privilege that he shouldn't have had. But that level of privilege came with a purpose. God had something planned for Moses. Finally, Moses didn't understand the full story of, or the way of how to innovate. He just knew, look, I'm called, I need to do something, let me just figure it out. And he tried to do it his way, and it just didn't work out. He wasn't able to free the people in the way that he wanted to. So he sort of ran and he hid. While he was out, he ended up getting married. And finally, he met God in this burning bush. He encountered God. And I think we all come to that point where we encounter God, and it's that in that moment that God speaks to us. God spoke to Moses, and he said, "Moses, let my people go." It was interesting because Moses said, "How?" And as he said how, he was already sending Aaron. Yes. And I think even now, a lot of us are wondering how God's going to do all this work. How are we going to serve at Malta without realizing that God is already sending the people? as I was saying how, God was already sending my friend Vale. As I was saying how, God was already sending my friend Rocio. As I was sending how, God was already sending my friend Len. God was bringing all of these streams together, and God said, I just need you to do the one thing that I've called you to do. And for me, that was important because growing up in a marginal community, Blue Island has about 18.9% of the people in that community are considered low income. National average is at 13%. The community next door to us is at 42% low income. The things that I experienced in that community left me with a lot of post-traumatic stress. Right around where the Hope Center is located, I could walk about 4 blocks down and show you where this guy growing up, he had his guts blown out in one of the alleys walking, near the Hope Center. One of my friends was shot in the neck. Another guy had his arm blown off. And even just a few blocks away from the Hope Center, there's this guy that held a gun to my head on the bus at the age of 12. Nobody should have a gun held to their head at the age of 12. And growing up in this community, I was trying to figure out, God, how does this boy that's trying to figure out what you have in store for me when I'm worried and preoccupied with all of these things going on in my head? I had this great opportunity while I was in high school. In the Latino community, there's 3 things that are central to Latinos. And it's almost in this order. It's family, it's work, and it's faith. When we have parties, we have our grandmas, our great-grandmas, we have our cousins. I mean, if you have a cousin that's a 4th cousin, that's still your cousin. You guys still hang out. Everybody's there. Everybody's eating. You're having a good time. And that was the environment that I grew up in. And what made it so important and so special is that in that, I was trying to figure out, God, what are you trying to do in my life? So that's the first thing that's central to Latinos. The second thing is work. Mom and dad just expect you to work hard. They expect you to go to work without asking any questions. It doesn't matter if you're sick. It doesn't matter if you're tired. It doesn't matter if you're a son that likes partying all night. You party all night, but guess what? You're going to go to work in the morning. And they better not call you lazy, because if they call you lazy, we're all going to shame you. And the last thing is faith. Even though it's loosely by the time I was born, my siblings had been born in a Roman Catholic, they were baptized in the Roman Catholic Church, and my mom was invited to this non-denominational church, a Pentecostal church, actually, and that's sort of my mom was trying to introduce to me Jesus Christ through this Roman Catholic background, through a Pentecostal background. And I was like, who is this God? What does he do? So I was working for this small family company. And as I was working for them, they said, hey, Moy, we really like your work ethic. And I was like, well, dang, you don't expect anybody to compliment you from something that's already expected. And they said, once you graduate high school, we'd love for you to join our management team. I said, well, what do I need to do? He said, well, you have to go to school and get your degree. And I thought, wow, I'm the youngest of 4. Nobody in my house has a formal education. Mom and dad didn't even graduate high school. I was planning to do the same thing that my dad did, work in the trades. If I work in the trades, I could provide for my family. Why? Because at the end of the day, education isn't really one of our top values. It's family, it's work, and it's faith. But when he said I would get paid more money, that was my incentive. So I asked, could I take the summer off? He said, no, you got to go straight to school. So I went to school, and wow, I actually started liking it. But I started realizing that I was a little different than my class. I walked in there, I was dressed different, and I realized, man, I think there's a little bit of assimilation that needs to happen. So I started just trying to shape and understand myself and understand cultural dexterity. And I was like, okay, and graduated, made the company a lot of money. And in the process, I made a lot of money. And I told my brother, I said, hey, I'm going to move out of the neighborhood. And he told me, he goes, yeah, Moy, he goes, you ain't about that life. I said, you're right, I'm not. I'd seen my brother shoot somebody in front of me. And finally, when they arrested him and put him away, it's because he was shooting at somebody in broad daylight. And I thought, yeah, this is my opportunity to get out of the neighborhood that I thought that had suffered some post-traumatic stress. So I move out of the community. After that, I'm going to growing in my field, and the company asked me, hey, Moy, do you need any additional training? I said, yeah, can I study the business side of what you were doing? At that point, the company had grown. It was a relatively small family company, 50 million in revenue. They had 2 joint ventures, one with India and one with China. And they were sending some of us to China at 4 weeks at a time. So I wanted to learn the international business side of what they were doing. So here's this young Latino kid now studying business, and I felt that I had made it. I was cruising to school, and I had the car, a sports car that I've always wanted. And at that point, I had 2 kids, and I was like, God, thank you for allowing me to offer something different to my kids. Thank you for allowing me to offer a different kind of experience for my kids. But as soon as I got out of the car, something troubled me, because I thought, just like the story of Moses, but what about my people back home? I would have never understood the potential I had not people given me an opportunity. And that's what I felt, is could somebody just give me a chance? Could somebody believe in me? You really see me and you see a manager? Guess what? Nobody that's a manager in this company looks like me. So you're telling me that I'm a manager? You're telling me that I could go to school? I was a kid that I just needed people to believe in me. And I thought, how could I transfer all my experiences in order to bring hope into the community that I grew up in? I'm like, well, now I'm living 30 minutes away from the community that I grew up in. How is this going to happen? And I started having this existential crisis of vocation. And I was going to school, I was going to work, and I was excelling, but something in my heart just started shifting. I told my wife one day, I was coming home, I said, you know what, I don't know, I've been thinking a lot about ministry lately. I said, I don't know, maybe it's partially out of guilt. I said, but maybe it's partially because of the story. I said, I can't let go of the story. My name means something. God is calling me to do something, but I just don't know how. I said, you know what? There's this pastor that I really admired, George Thomas. I said, man, if I could just be mentored by somebody like him, I said, I would go into ministry. I am not kidding you. 3 months later, this pastor that was hard to reach ends up becoming an interim pastor at the church we were attending. And he goes, hey, Moy, by the way, he goes, I'd like to spend some time with you. He goes, I'd like to just, talk to you about vocation, talk to you about calling. And he started spending every Tuesday with me for an hour for 6 months. And afterwards he said, I see a calling on your life. And we're going to be opening up a position here, and I'd like to invite you to be part of our staff. Now, I thought, this is an answer to prayer. I'm excited. This is probably the opportunity. And I got home and I told my wife, I said, hey, what do you think? She's like, I don't think it's time yet. And I was like, that's probably a confirmation from the Holy Spirit, because all of a sudden I started getting this sick feeling. I was like, I have a month's worth of vacation accumulated at my church. I have these nice benefits. What does it look like to work in a church? I got up that Friday and I told my wife, I said, you know what? We both come from very humble beginnings. And it would bother me if I didn't trust God and leave exactly what He's blessed us with, to just try it. I said, I'd rather try and fail than to never have tried at all, the very God who called me. So I called him up that Friday, and I was nervous in my stomach, and I said, hey, remember about that thing you were talking to me about? He said, yeah. I said, I'm ready. He goes, good. He goes, well, Moy, I know that you have sort of education in business and programming. He goes, but you need a theological background. He goes, so we need you to go to school and get some theological training. Oh, man, I liked it so much. I did an undergrad in business, and then I did a master's degree in philosophy of religion. And I was like, I actually like studying this thing that I was always trying to run from. I'm actually liking it. And I felt that the ministry, I was a youth pastor at the time, and the youth ministry started to grow, and a lot of great things started happening in ministry. But once I graduated from seminary, I started asking myself, but what about this community? And my friend who was on staff at this primarily large church, a black church, he said, hey, Moy, I think you'd be a great fit for our team. He goes, why don't you come talk to our pastor? So I went and I talked to him, and he said, yeah, Moy. He goes, it'd be great to have you on our team. He's like, we're actually launching a campus right in the community that you grew up in, Blue Island. I was like, wow, that's ironic. Yeah. So we started having this conversation, and it leads from, one thing leads to another. And I go, okay, I think this is God's way of just bringing me back home. I think this is where the story sort of begins. So I start pastoring this church. It's right at the heart of sort of where I grew up, right in the heart of where everything happening. They call it Little Mexico. And ministry goes great the first year. And then ministry really started taking off the second year. And then the third year, the pandemic happened. And I talked to our team and I said, look, I think we need to pivot. I said, right now it's scary because while the professional world is working via Zoom, I said, all of our community, I said, they have to go to work. They're essential workers. So what do we do to help serve our community? I said, let's try to figure out some of the needs that we could meet. So we got together with the Chicago Food Depository, with Advocate, with a few other partners. And that year we were able to resource and service close to 10,000 people. And it was exciting because as these cars were coming by, I was seeing some of my friends and some of the kids from the friends that I grew up with. And everybody's like, hey, boy, you back in the area? And I'm like, yeah. And it brought me a lot of joy because I told my wife, I said, I think this is it. I think this is this whole puzzle I've been thinking about, the whole reason why my name is Moses. We got to the end of the year and Pastor goes, wow, this looks like if you had a really good year, boy, right? I said, yeah. He goes, what's wrong? I said, I'm a little broken. I said, because I feel I'm enabling my community and not empowering them. I said, I've gotten to the end of the year, I said, and now people are depending on the goods that we're offering them. I said, I don't know, there's something in me that doesn't feel good with that. I said, I was part of this neighborhood and I needed a hand up, not a handout. And I said, Pastor, could you just hear me for a second? He said, yeah, what's up? I said, I've been thinking about this thing. I'd like to turn the church into a nonprofit focused on community economic development. I said, I'd like to add value back into the community. I said, let me tell you why. I said, so-and-so comes to our church and they ask for prayer. They ask for prayer because they can't pay for their rent. And I'm supposed to just magically pray that God sends a check in their mail so that their rent could be paid. I said, somebody else comes to my church and they're just like, hey, I'm struggling with diabetes, with hypertension. And I'm like, okay, we could help you, but we should also offer the right resources of nutrition and medical help in order to help you with healthy living. I'm like, we're not completing. Something is missing. I said, so I want to work in 3 of the following areas: agriculture, technology, and auto mechanics. I said, because I want to help increase the personal sense of self-agency in our community. I said, for me, as a kid from this community, I didn't believe in myself. It wasn't until I was able to do something with these hands and build something. It wasn't until somebody believed in me and I was able to do it that I came to this newfound appreciation for what I was able to do, and not in a prideful sense, in a sense of self-agency. I said, so that's what I want to do in my community. Put down his glasses and he leaned over and he goes, Moy, are you saying that you would rather do this than be the pastor of a church? I thought, oh no. Here's where the story ends. I said, Pastor, yes. He goes, then I'll help you launch it and fund it until you get fully funded. And I was like, okay. So that was the fun part. But the hard part was, the hard part is I hadn't told anybody sort of how we were going to do this. All I knew is that I had some mechanic friends. All I knew is that I had some friends that are agricultural scientists and botanists. And I have a friend who's an engineer by trade, and he also does the work of a patent attorney. So I got each group together and I said, hey guys, I got this idea. What would it look like if we were to impact our community in the following ways? I said, healthy living is important, because a lot of times I've learned that if you're not eating right, you're not producing a lot of the serotonin that a healthy gut generally produces. So let's just say, they say that 5 pounds of your gut is bacteria. And if it's unhealthy bacteria, you're not producing serotonin, which makes you off mentally. Now, what happens if you're off, if you're groggy, if you're not at your best and you're going to work? Well, you're not going to get a promotion. And what happens if you're not getting a promotion and providing for your family? You have problems at home. What could we do if we provide this food desert with access to fresh food, and not just giving them fresh food, but showing them how to grow fresh food? So one of the ways that we've done that, is this the thing? So this is the Hope Center. We've added a chicken farm to our Hope Center. And those are the little chicks. Now they're big chicks and they're laying like 3-4 eggs a day. This is our Hope Center team. We have a butterfly garden there, and we have a big mural of a butterfly. The reason why these monarch butterflies are so important to me and my friend Violet is because the butterflies come from Michoacan, Mexico, which is where our family comes from. They travel from here to Canada, and it takes 3 generations in 1 year for them to go to Canada and come back. They're hungry little suckers, and they probably travel 1 to 250 miles a day. So we provide a little pollinators garden so that we could help feed them. Why? Because every time I see these butterflies, I think of our immigrant journey. What it's like for us to go, travel, settle, eat, and come back. And it's also a representation for our community. There's Vale. So one of the things we wanted to do with this workshop is, how do we help women in the community that feel that they're the most vulnerable population when they go and get their cars fixed? How do we help empower them? So we started putting together women's workshops, and this was a women's workshop where they learned how to change brakes on a car. And it was interesting because some of the women said, wow, I actually thought that the brakes came from the, where you see where the black part is from the front. They said, I thought actually the brakes came over here. I didn't know where the brakes come from, but now I know where the brakes come from. So not only do we teach the community how to work on cars, but we also help them along, with a business plan and a microloan if they want to scale up and make that into a side hustle. During our last workshop, a lot of the women were sharing some of their testimony. They were just randomly, we didn't ask them to, they were just getting up randomly and sharing their testimonies. And one lady got up, she said, you know what? During the last workshop, I went home and I had a flat on the expressway. She goes, normally it would have scared me, but instead I knew where to pull over. I knew how to jack up my car. I know how to take out my tire and put it on. And she started crying. She goes, you know how empowered I felt when I got back in my car? She goes, thank you. Thank you for empowering us. That's Vale's brother, Luis. And actually, that's my car. I let everybody work on my car. They asked me why I have that little backpack on the top, and it's because I don't have enough room in the car. So, but now with the leader award, I think we're going to have to upgrade that baby. This is part of our garden in the back. There's a trail that's focused on mental wellness. I was inspired by reading this book by Florence Williams that's called Nature Fix. So we want to help our community connect with God, connect with nature. There's going to be some QR codes at the beginning of this trail that are going to help facilitate sort of connecting with God through the Celtic way and El Camino. So that's the mural in the back. That's the mural in the back with the butterfly. This is part of our garden. That's what we originally drew up in order to, this is what we visualized. This is part of our tech center. Now, what we do at our tech center is the whole idea is, yes, let's teach our community how to make things that they could sell. And this is great because teaching somebody how to make an extra $50 a week or an extra $200 a month is important, especially if you teach a kid how to do this. But the even greater part for me, the biggest selling point is, how do we cultivate a creative imagination, problem-solving skills in our community? Why? Because there's more than enough problems out there, but there's not enough people with robust solutions. So how do we provide a template to cultivate the imagination of our community so that they could think through problems systematically? And I tell everybody, I said, look, there's money everywhere. There's potholes. I said, what if we came up with a sustainable way to cover these potholes and partnered up with the city in order to cover these potholes? I said, it's easy for all of us to point them out, but do we have enough people here cultivating our imagination that could solve some of these problems? So that's what I love most about the Tech Center. Those are some of the things that we've designed. So this is the part of the garage. We're on our way to give away our 7th car. So what happens is people donate their dilapidated cars. And what we do is we fix them up. Not only do we fix up the inside, but we have partners that fix up the outside. They do all the work, and then we find needs in the community, people that need to get to work, that don't have the finances to buy a car, and we give them a car. So right now we're currently working on our 7th car. It's a Volkswagen buggy. And our Volkswagen mechanic loves that. I just got word that we're getting a Honda Civic in next week, so pretty excited. We're going to be giving away a total of 8 cars. These are our hydroponic machines. So part of the indoor gardening is hydroponics. This machine grows 25 pounds of vegetables in 28 days. It uses 95% less water and 98% less land. When they go through our cohort, not only do we give them some of our fresh vegetables, but we also give them a small kit on how to grow fresh vegetables at home. My goal long term is to create an app, a digital garden app for our community, so that everybody could see who's a gardener. We'll be giving subscriptions of everybody that has this app, seeds seasonally, with videos on how to grow their food. And if anybody has access, if anybody has an excess of vegetables, they could just look on the app and say, oh, wow, look, Moy has extra tomatoes and I have more cucumbers. Why don't I just call them really quick and see if we can make a quick exchange? Or so-and-so grew so many more squashes and they're just wanting to give them away so that they don't go bad. Okay, good. You'll get a notification on the app, and the app will allow you to have this ecosystem in a community where we're all tackling. That was our women's workshop that we just installed at 1,200 square foot garden. So this is our next phase. In the fall, we want to launch aquaponics, so we'll be incorporating the hydroponics with fish so that we could provide both protein and also vegetables for our community. That's our expanded hydroponics department. So I want to end by saying this. We have all of our mechanics there, working there. And one of my friends that I grew up with, he goes, Moy, this is great. He goes, I get your vision. I get this reason why you're saying, Moses in the Bible. He goes, Moses would always say, let my people go. He goes, but I feel like if you're the modern day Moses saying, let my people go. He goes, I feel like if you're the modern day Moses saying, let my people grow. Yeah. And I said, yeah. I said, wow, he gets it. That's exactly what I want, is find innovative ways to help my community grow. God bless you guys.